going on, guys? Anthony here. So today I have a new election video for you, and it is my breakdown of the 2020 Michigan Senate race between the two candidates, Democratic incumbent Gary Peters and Republican challenger John James. So Gary Peters, he is the incumbent U.S. Senator. Before being elected senator, he was a U.S. representative from Michigan's 14th district. That was from 2013 through 2014. Then he got elected in 2014. And before that, he previously served in the U.S. Navy Reserve. And the Republican challenger, John James. John James was the 2018 Republican nominee for Senate in Michigan against Debbie Stabenow. Uh, Based off his performance and polling data, he ended up overperforming his expectations in 2018 by a lot, actually. And he also served 8 years in the United States Army. So this is the Senate race back in 2014 when Gary Peters was elected. Gary Peters won with 54.6% of the vote to Terry Land's 41.3%. It wasn't really close. Gary Peters pretty much crushed her in this election. But if I want you to take away anything from this is look at the map of Michigan from this election. Look at all the blue throughout the north of the state and look out through blue throughout the middle of the state. Ready? This is 2014 and this is John James in 2018. You see that? See the difference? See all the red that came up on top and in the middle? Debbie Stabenow beat John James in 2018. However, she got 52.3. John James got 45.8. So based off history of Michigan and off-year elections, this is actually a lot closer than what historically has happened. Not to mention, Debbie Stabenow has been in the Senate for a while. She's a very, very powerful incumbent, a very good candidate last time around. John James did overperform and did very good against her, actually, which is why John James is kind of heralded as kind of like a rising star for Republican candidates on the right, is that he was able to keep this race, which should have been a blowout for Debbie Stabenow, very close and very competitive. And John James definitely overperformed throughout rural and really suburban Michigan. I mean, the red counties got redder and the blue counties got redder as well. So this is a very good night. Even though he lost to John James, this is good news going for his future political career. So Gary Peters' current approval rating, according to Morning Consult, he has a 37% approval rating and 29% disapproval rating. The only reason this is significant is because Gary Peters is not well known. He's not well heard of. And that's really the only thing that could hurt him in this race. That's the only thing that could hurt him is he's not really well known. Like, I think it was 33% of people in Michigan don't even know who he is. So that could be an issue, but that's really the only issue with regards to his approval rating. So the election polling data we have now. So Fox News just released a poll a few days ago that has Gary Peters up over John James 46% to 36% with a lot of undecided vote. The Detroit News had a poll back in January that has Gary Peters up 44% to 40%, which is within the margin of error technically. Quinnipiac did a poll back in February that has Gary Peters up 45% to John James' 39%. And Emerson did a poll back in October and November of 2019 that has Peters at 46 and John James at 40. So with these four polls, the averages add up to 45.3% for Gary Peters, 38.8% for John James. That gives Peter a 6.5% lead among polling data. And yeah, we'll get on to my personal assessment of that later on. But I mean, Gary Peters is without a doubt leading this race right now. So endorsements for Gary Peters, I was actually surprised. He doesn't have many endorsements. He has Brian Schatz, senator from Hawaii, Debbie Stabenow, who is co-senator from Michigan, and Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut. But he doesn't really have many endorsements from any notable figures or Democratic candidates for president or anything. He doesn't have any endorsements. John James, however, he definitely has more big endorsements. He has the endorsements of President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, Senator Rick Scott from Florida, former governor of Florida as well, Ronna McDaniel, the chairwoman of the RNC, and Bill Schwett, who was the 2018 governor nominee and the former attorney general of the state of Michigan. So my personal assessment of this race is I think Gary Peters is an early favorite to win this race as of now. I think Peters doesn't really have too much against him that's going to hurt him. The only thing that can hurt Gary Peters really is name recognition. That if he's not well known, that means two things. That means he's not well known, but he also doesn't get in too much trouble either, which really could be a good thing and a bad thing. So he probably has enough to get by and win, but that's the only thing that he can really be attacked on. John James is a really good candidate who overperformed in 2018, and he does have the advantage or disadvantage, depending on your view of it, of President Trump running on the same ballot as him. I think whether Trump wins Michigan at this point is still to be determined. I think that Michigan's probably in like the tilt Democratic column right now, so Trump's likely to lose Michigan very, very close. However, that probably means that John James will probably run similar margins, and he could lose Michigan very close as well. But maybe if John James overperforms President Trump, that could be good news for John James. And even if he loses, maybe in 2022 he could run for governor against Gretchen Whitmer, who knows, if her approval rating goes down more, maybe she might be very beatable in 2022. But Trump being on the ballot is definitely going to make or break John James' chances of winning this race, probably. And now here's my prediction for this race. I think Gary Peters will end up beating John James. I do think Gary Peters will win. I think Gary Peters will get a narrow majority of the vote at about 50.5%, which is less than his election last time and less than Debbie Stabenow. However, I think John James will get 47%, which is more than he got last time as well. President Trump being on the ballot will both boost John James's numbers and bring down Gary Peters, and his lack of approval or his lack of name recognition will also bring down Gary Peters' numbers. However, I do think Gary Peters will be able to hold on and narrowly win this election by about 3 points. So that is my video for my election prediction of the Michigan Senate race. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought and any future video ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.